Estou presente. Lá na casa do Melo, que é o Melo. Não dá pra isso, não estou vendo. Às vezes não, na verdade eu queria vir nessa de terça-feira. Não estou falando da Joana, eu não lembro, né? Falou lá, né? Então, um estudo específico.
Terça não estudo.
Só isso.
Eu só sei que eu não fazia.
Eu sei. Mas eu preciso lidar com isso.
Okay.
Eu tenho, não sei lidar com isso.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Working. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our Spirit Center, to Cantinho de Luz. As we usually do every second Monday of the month, we have our meetings in English. It's once a month, and as we normally do, we usually start with an opening prayer, and then we go ahead with the reading of a message, then brief comment. Right after that, we go to the public talk, to the lecture that we usually do from the Gospel according to Spiritism. This is one of the covers. And then at the end, we usually have our passes, our final prayer, some announcements if we have some, and then we finish our meeting. It usually takes about an hour for our regular meeting, then a little bit for the passes. So no later than 8:30, we're done with everything. Usually on Mondays we don't have a lot of people, so it usually ends at around 8:15 more or less. So that's usually how our meetings go. This is our last meeting of this year, our second Monday, so we will have another meeting in English in January, the second Monday of January, and then second Monday of February, second Monday of March, and so on and so forth. So before we start, like I said, let's do our initial prayer, and then we will go on with our meeting. If you want, you can close your eyes so that we can focus a little bit more on the words and on the feelings. And if we can, raise our thoughts even higher so that we can, through our feelings, through our thoughts, we can connect even further with our dear friends from the spiritual world, thinking about God, thinking about Jesus, our dear friend. We would like to say, God, creator of the universe, and of our small hearts, and of ourselves. We would like to thank you for once again giving us the opportunity of being here to think about your teachings, to think about your love, and the love you have for every single creature in this universe. May tonight, with the reflections that are going to be brought to us, May we learn a little bit more about this love that is not for the others to feel for us, but may we understand and feel that this love is the love that we need to learn from you so that we can feel the same love for everybody in our lives. May these teachings that were brought to us by our dear friend, Master, and Brother Jesus go deep within our hearts, deep within our souls. And may we feel His presence by our side, wherever we are, through our trials and tribulations, but also on those moments of happiness and of joy. May this love that we feel now be with us, not only now, but always. So be it. So, I'm going to be here the whole night, because the one who would come here to talk to us about the gospel, he had a problem at work and he couldn't come. So I'm going to be the one doing the reading of the message, and then later on doing the main talk of the night. Before we start, I'm just going to go there in the computer to set up something, and I'll be right back. So as I said in the beginning, we have the reading of every single one of our activities. We have, before we start with the main talk, we read a passage or message from one of these books, these books from this collection here that's called Our Daily Bread collection. There are 5 books on this collection, and this is a book written by the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, which was a medium in Brazil. And this is one of the covers of the book. I'm not going to read from this version here. I'm going to read from a version that I have here on my device. I think the words are a little easier to understand. This translation here is kind of uses more complex words. This one here uses less complicated words. So I think it's makes it a little bit easier to understand. And the message for tonight is message number 85 from this book, Our Daily Bread. And this message is one of the messages that really made me, a while ago, I don't remember when it was, but I remember reading it for the first time, or maybe not for the first time, but when it actually hit me and made me look at everything that I read from a different perspective, from a different point of view. The title of the message is, What About the Adulterer? An adulterer is usually a person who is married and has an affair outside of the marriage. So it can be the woman or it can be the man. So you're married and then you meet somebody outside of the marriage and then you go and have an affair with that person. So that's an adulterer. And Emmanuel asks in this question, the title, what about the adulterer? The only thing that I'd like to point out here is that he is asking about the male adulterer, not about the female adulterer. He's asking about the man, not about the woman. Why is he asking this? Because he takes this passage from the Gospel of John, and it's on chapter 8, verse number 4. He takes this small passage from the Bible, and he said, in placing her in their midst, they said to him, Master, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. So this is that passage in the Gospels where Jesus is said to be writing something on the sand. He's probably sitting down or lowered down with probably a wood stick in his hand and writing something on the sand. And there comes this huge group of people with this woman that they say, and that's when this passage comes from, Master, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. What should we do to her? That's their question. So it's that passage that Jesus then comes and asks, oh, and you want to throw stones on her? Who amongst you that doesn't have any sin, that never made any mistakes, throw the first stone? And as we know the story, everybody leaves. Nobody stays there. Everybody goes away, starting from the oldest to the youngest. So the oldest left first, and then they were all leaving, the youngest, and then he looks and asks the woman, where are those who accused you? And she said, they all left. And then Jesus looks at her and says, then I, myself, don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. That's what he says. So that's what the story is about. And Emmanuel takes one small piece of this story and puts here and makes the following comment. And I'm going to read it because it will make us think a little bit about this. Emmanuel says, the case of this sinner presented to Jesus by the crowd involves highly significant considerations regarding people's tendency to see evil in others without seeing it in themselves. So Emmanuel goes and he goes straight to the point. He says, this story is about people seeing evil in others. So I see that you made this mistake, you made that mistake, you made that mistake, you made that mistake, but I don't see that I made a mistake. So it's much easier for me to see mistakes in others than for me to see a mistake in myself. That's how Emmanuel starts. And he goes on. Among the reflections suggested by the story, we may identify the erroneous concept of one-sided adultery. If the misfortunate woman had been actually caught in the act, then where was the other adulterer? Why was he not brought for judgment? Was she the only one responsible? If there was a blemish on the collective organism requiring intervention in order to be eradicated, where was the one who had contributed to it hiding out? So Emmanuel says, usually when we look at this story, we think of one adulterer, the woman. Emmanuel looks at us and says, where's the man on that story? Because if she is an adulterer, he is also an adulterer. Why only her was brought to be judged? Why wasn't he brought to be judged as well? The master's attitude at that moment was characterized by infinite wisdom and unsurpassable love. Jesus could not place the weight of the blame on the unfortunate woman, and to help everyone grasp their error, he asked which of those present was without sin. The long, spontaneous silence that followed was a more eloquent answer than any spoken statement could have been. Standing with the woman were men who were sinners standing with the woman were men who were sinners too, and who retreated in shame. Man and woman come into the world with specific duties, which are to become part of an essentially unified task within the within the universal evolutionary plan. During the time of the earthly experience, one cannot fall without the other, because both have been given the same opportunity for sanctification. If the women who have deviated from their elevated mission continue to be such an unfortunate focal point on the societal path, it is because male adulterers continue to be absent at the time of judgment, just as they were at the time of Jesus' famous. Melo finishes this saying that if today we still have the same thing, if only the women are to blame for being an adulterer, we didn't change anything. We are still the same that we were 2,000 years ago. He asks, where's the other one who committed the crime? Why are we blaming only the woman? Where's the man who committed adultery? So, of course, I am not a woman. So, if a woman was caught in adultery with me, I needed to be blamed as much as she. But even today, if a woman is caught in adultery, it's usually for the society much more. It is as if it's more wrong that a woman was caught in adultery than a man. Because as we hear from time to time, oh no, this is a man thing. This is something that men do. No, this is not something that men do. This is something that a person, independently of being a man or a woman, doesn't care enough about the other person. Cares only about himself or herself. So it is wrong to consider only one side to be blamed for. What Jesus is trying to teach us is not, though, what is wrong and what is right in this specific regard. What he's asking us to think about is, where were you when you had to do something and you didn't do what you needed to do? You did wrong. Because for us to make mistakes, it's usually not only one person that makes it. There's a saying in Portuguese that says, if one doesn't want, two don't fight. So if there's two people, one of them wants to fight, the other one doesn't, there will be no fight. The person that doesn't want to fight may be even hurt because the other person can hit or can do whatever, but it's not a fight. It's not a fight. The same thing, it's an aggression, exactly. So here's the same thing. If there's an adultery, it's not one. It's at least two. At least two. It can be more, but it's at least two. But we usually blame one, as if this one is more blameful than the other one, or we forget about the other one, but both are committing the same mistake and the same error. So when I said that this story or this passage, this message here, this book brought me was not only for this message itself, but for us to look at everything that we read and put a different glass and try to look at that passage from a different perspective, from a different point of view, instead of judging one, trying to be and put ourselves in every single spot on that story. What if I were the woman? What if I were the old man who left first? What if I were the young man who left at last for less? What if I were the other man that it's not even mentioned in the story? And maybe that man was there too. In the middle of that crowd, maybe the man, the adulterer, was there, watching and waiting and expecting that she would be blamed, that she would be stoned to death. And Jesus didn't blame the others, but didn't blame her either. Because he knew and he knows that we are all to blame. And once we have the stone in our hands and we are about to throw at others people's mistakes, stop and ask ourselves, what about the adulterer? What about the other person? What about me? Why am I so quick in judging others? Why am I so quick in condemning others? Why am I so quick in executing the killing instead of not judging? Do not judge so you don't get judged harshly. Do to others as you wish were done unto you. But no, we are quick because we see, as Emmanuel started, we see it's much easier for us to see other people's mistakes than my own mistake. So we better start looking at other people and seeing mirrors in place of the person, so that when I look at Adriana, I see myself more beautiful than her, of course, because, but more full of mistakes and errors as well. So, right? So I can see and look inside myself instead of looking at others and judging them. So that's our message for tonight. And hopefully, if you didn't understand it well, you can get the book. There's Portuguese version of the book. If you can understand French, there's French version of the book. There is Greek version of the book. So you can go and get a Greek version and read in Greek. Or in Portuguese, if you probably. So message number 85 of the book, Our Daily Bread. And now we will go to the Gospel according to Spiritism. We are reading, we are studying and making comments on chapter number 3, which is, in my Father's house are many mansions. But before I start, I need to go to the computer again, change something, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. So, as you guys that always come, you know what we're doing, but I'm gonna explain it again. For the past, I don't know, we've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years, doing one public meeting in English a month. And what we did before was we went chapter by chapter. So every month we would comment one chapter, entire chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, from chapter 1, from the introduction to chapter 28. So it took, 5 years, 6 years to do that. And once we finished, we came back to the beginning of the book. And now what we're doing is every chapter is divided in small pieces, and we are going into these small pieces little by little. So we are going to cover the whole Gospel according to Spiritism but it's been like maybe 2 years already, and we're still on chapter 3. So it's a long process of going chapter by chapter and item by item, but it's something that's really important for us because our efforts in English here are for the spirits that we cannot see or that I cannot see, that only understand English. It is also for us to get used to the words, get used to the vocabulary. And if we are living here, our daughters, our sons are going to be Americans or are Americans. And the next generation will probably be less able to read Portuguese. So if we are able at least to know a little bit, we will be able to help those who want to understand a little bit more. And it is also important for us to know more about the language of the country that we live in, so that we can, in a easier way, communicate and do anything or everything that we need to do here. So, of course, if we were living in Colombia or in Bolivia, we would not be speaking in English, we would be speaking in Spanish. If we were in France, we would be trying to learn and speaking in French, right? In Greece, we would be trying to speak Greek. But we are in the United States, so we have our meetings in Portuguese, which are most of our activities, and only this one in English. So I think it's good for us to at least once in a while have this, so that we at least do something in the language of the country that embraced us and we are here. So now coming back to what we're going to talk about tonight, as I said, from chapter 3 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, this is one of the covers of their many translations. This is from the Odyssey of America. It's the editor of the International Spiritist Council, and then they have this translation here. We're reading chapter 3, which is, "In my Father's house are many mansions," when Jesus told us that don't be afraid. This is not the only place that we have. In my Father's house, in the universe, there are many houses. There are many other houses for all of us. And we talked about the beginning of this chapter in our 2 previous meetings. And tonight, we're talking about the different categories of the worlds that we have around the universe. My first question, and I don't expect you to answer, I don't need you to answer, but it's more for us to put our heads around it, is when we look up to the sky and we see all those stars, we see all those planets. And what is funny is, when I was growing up, and maybe it happened to you too, when we look up and we see all those stars blinking, in my mind, I thought, oh, those are stars, but I don't live in a star, I live in a planet. I live on planet Earth, right? So in my mind, a star was like a planet. But actually, a star is like the sun, is a sun. And the planets are around the sun, circling around the sun. So we have Mercury, and we have Venus, we have Earth, we have Mars, so on and so forth. Neptune. One sun, 8 planets, plus Pluto that we don't know if it's a planet or not. It is a planet, then it's not a planet. Then it's a planet, now it's not a planet. Because there are not considered planets, and then, but they're bigger than Pluto, but they're not planets. So now it's, oh, okay, whatever. Pluto, welcome back, right? Yes, welcome back. 9 planets around the sun. It's one star. We see stars shining all over the universe. And we say there are billions of stars, or trillions of stars. And how many planets then? Because if the sun has 9 around it, other stars will have other planets around it. So there's this book called Cosmos by the late science professor or astronomer called Carl Sagan. Made this beautiful series in the 1980s called Cosmos. And then they just remade that series. And I'm not sure if it's on National Geographic Channel or History Channel or somewhere else. But it was updated. A new version was made of it by this other scientist called Neil deGrasse Tyson. And in this book by Carl Sagan, in the very beginning of the book, he dedicates that book to his wife. And he says that he's so grateful. He's so, he doesn't have words to say of how immensely thankful he is for being born in this planet at the same time that his wife was born. Because he could have been born like now, and his wife would be born like 50, 60 years ago. They would never be husband and wife. So not only he would have to be born at the same planet as her, but at the same time. At around the same time, 10 years apart, whatever it is, the number, but in the age where they could meet and be married. And there is a calculation in his book that he gets a lot of huge numbers, like in the billions, in the trillions, and he starts making calculations to see how many planets he thinks that there could be life on the universe. And even though he reduces the amount of planets to almost nothing, he said, there is no way that in this hugely big, immensely ginormous universe, there could be only one planet with life. And he's a scientist. I mean, of course we don't have any confirmation, but this thing that we call universe is so big that for us to travel to another planet, it takes a long time. And the person that will go probably will never be able to come back. I always think of Christopher Columbus when he came from Europe to here. And those sailors that came with him, what did those sailors say to their wives? Oh, I'll be back in a week. It was always a goodbye. It was always see you one day if I return, if I come back. And it's on the same planet. We're talking about the same planet. So if we're thinking of going farther away, first it will take a long time for us to get answers. But then we already know that in this solar system that we live, physical people like us with the same type of body breathing oxygen cannot live in those other, because there's no oxygen, because there's almost no water. No, they found a little bit of water here and there in Mars in form of maybe ice or something, but there's no way that I could survive in Mars without equipment. And we just had this movie called, Lost in Mars or something like that with Matt Damon. And he goes there in a mission and he gets lost there and then he stays there for 3-4 years, and it's all scientifically plausible. I mean, if everything was studied to see the best conditions and the perfect conditions that he could survive for a few days or for a few years, whatever it is. And It is tough. It is tough. So, of course, when we talk about different categories of inhabited worlds, I mean, talking about life in other planets, it looks like, and of course it is, matter also for science fiction, and we will always see and talk about these things. So we have Star Trek, so we have Star Wars, so we have so many other movies that talk about aliens invading the planet, or we go into other planets, and then Star Trek this, Star Trek that, and then comes whatever names of movies we want, or we want to go into the books or into the graphic novels, and we will see lots of stories about people going to different planets. It's a dream to all of us that we will one day be able to do that. But our reasoning behind this, other than the idea of really traveling, going to a different country or to a different planet or to a different world, is not that we will need to be there. It's not that we will need to go to a different planet so that we can survive. It's just the idea that why in this universe would someone who we believe and we call God would have all these stars for no reason, or just for us to look up and see those stars, and oh no, they were created for us to navigate the world so that we can look at the stars and know where we're going to, like the old sailors would do. They would put their instruments in their boats, in their ships, and then would look up and then say, oh, we have to go in this direction so that we can get to that land, and so on. So was this whole universe made for us to use the stars? Whatever reason it is. So it is way too much intelligence wasted from this big, whatever the name we want to call it, God, to create everything and then be it only for us. So when we stop and really put ourselves into perspective, and maybe if we are not able to, even if we're not able to grasp the how big and how immense this universe is, but if we are able to think, if we are able to make a cell phone, if we are able to create microphones, cameras, if we are able to create chairs, and we look up, we look to all these worlds, all these planets, everything in synchrony, in harmony, everything working together like a clock, like a watch, everything working together, the tides, the moon, the weather, and everything else. Why there should be no intelligence behind this? Why is it that we think that everything is like chaos or by chance? So why am I going this path? Is for us to understand that there may be something out there that we don't really understand yet, that we really don't know yet. So to give a basic example, what if I had somebody born in not too far away? Let's say the person was 50 years old in the 1950s. Person that was already 50 years old. So the person was born more or less in the beginning of last century, around the 1900s. And then by 1950, the person was 50 years old. And then he, for some reason, slept, got into a coma. And they were able to make him live for 50 more years. So he gets to the year 2000. Then he wakes up. And then we give him this. What will he do with this?
I don't really think about this as a phone.
We had the opposite done the other day. I told this story here. Kids around 8, 9, 10, were put into this room, and there was this desk in front of them, and a telephone was put on top of that desk. But it's an old telephone. The one that you have to, and then they would look at that and the person would ask, what is this? They have no idea what that is. No, absolutely no idea. And then they would say, oh, this is a phone. It's a phone? And then they would get it, right? And then they would, like the cord, which would be usually here, some of them would put him up, so the cord would be like here, and they would do it like this. So then how do we speak on this? How do I call somebody else? Why am I saying this? There are things that we don't understand yet. We may think that we know a lot. We may think that we know everything that there's to know about. But there are still things that we are so far away from knowing that we don't even know about it. So if that person that was born in 1900 came from 1950, and I gave him, it was 50 when he was in the 1950s, and then you wake up again in 2000, and I gave him a remote control, he would ask, how does this work? He would know it would work. He would point to something, and then probably it would turn on and off. He would probably know the buttons. He would read volume. He would read channel. He would read something, and he would be able to press. But he would probably ask himself, how does this work? How can I press this button? No wires. And how can this connect to that TV, to that sound right there, and then make it work? What is coming from this to that and making it work? What is happening? So how can I be sure? How can I be completely certain that there are not other people around here at the same moment in this room that I'm not able to see? How can I be sure? And so many other things. People would say, oh, but we went to that place and there was nobody there. We went to that other planet, there was nobody there. So we have the planet Earth. More than 70% of Earth is covered in water, where there's nobody living. The majority of the surface of our planet is water. So the chances of a plane or of a unidentified flying object, a flying saucer, whatever we want to call it, like a round circle flying, coming here, and landing on water is much more plausible than landing in the land and finding something. And then they probably could find like a whale or a fish. They'd probably try to talk to a whale. And then they would, whoa, like Dory, not right? In Finding Nemo, that she speaks to the whale and she speaks like, wow, why? Right? Probably that's what they would need to do. And what would the whale answer? What would a fish answer? So when we go to other planets, and we can't go, there's no way that we can go, I mean, persons, right? Well, we sent Pathfinders, we sent Rosetas, we sent whatever, missions to other planets. We sent a mission recently to a comet and took photos of this comet, and the spacecraft hit the comet. And while it was in this process, it was taking pictures so that we could see. And now we have those pictures, and the spacecraft is destroyed. So it is not that we are saying that every planet has human DNA, has a person that has a body that is like me or like Adriana or like other people. What we are saying is there is a huge possibility of having people in some planets. But when Kardec is talking about this here, he's not even only talking about physical people that we can live, that we can see. If we are not able to see everything that's going through here, so if I make a call, we will not see what's coming out of this phone. But there's something coming out of here, and something coming to here. If we put a radio here and turn it on, we will hear something that the radio is capturing. Because the radio is attracting something? No, it's because it's already here. But we cannot see it, we cannot hear it, we cannot feel it. But it's here. So what Kardec is saying is, every single world, every single planet has a purpose. We don't know what purpose. We don't know exactly what it is. Just like we don't know what's the purpose of my neighbor. What goes in his head or in her head? We don't know. They are worlds. They are worlds in themselves. We have abilities that I have abilities that you don't know. You have abilities that I don't know. Why? Because we are just meeting. And even people that we know, we don't know everything that they can do. Why are we so eager to tell and to say that in this planet there's nothing, in this other planet there's nothing? What do we mean when we say nothing? Oh, if we want to say that there's no physical human life, yeah, we can say that. That's no problem. But we cannot say that there is not something else that we still cannot understand, that we still cannot see. So what Kardec is saying is, look, if we really believe that God is the creator of the universe, there must be a reason for some of these things. And what he says is, every single one of these planets, or every single one of these, like the sun and all the stars, there must be a reason for them. And they are in different categories, just like a school. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and so on and so forth. And every world is in a different stage, different learning processes. I am learning to write. Somebody is already learned to write. So they're learning to write better. Oh, I know how to write. Write your name. And then the person writes his name. Write your friend's name. Oh, I don't know. Oh, so you still don't know how to write. You know how to write your name, but you're still learning how to write. Because to learn how to write, you need to learn how to hear, how to listen, how to understand what the other person is saying so that you can write it down. So we go step by step learning. Different worlds, different levels of progress, but not just intellectual progress, moral progress as well. So Kardec, in this topic here, he makes this list. It's not a big list. It's a list of 5 items. And tells us that, okay, this list is just for us to have a big idea. Like it is as if, you know, when we are, I don't know if you've seen this, probably you have. So let's say we're going to build this shopping mall. We're going to build this complex of houses, for example, right? And then the person goes and asks the architect to draw. So the architect draws everything and then puts like in a plan and then prints and show it to you. It's like, oh gosh, I cannot see it. I cannot understand what is written in this paper. So let's make a small scale thing. So the guy buys whatever piece of wood and then starts to buy houses and build all those houses and all those apartments in a small scale, just like as if they are using Legos to build stuff. And then he builds all the complex and everything. When you look at that, then you say, oh, now I understand it. It's not the real thing. It's not as big that I can walk into, but I can know, oh, now this house is going to be here. Oh, this apartment is going to be here. Oh, here we're going to have a pool. Here we're going to have this court so that I can play basketball. And here, and so it's everything organized. So what Kardec does here, he says, okay, I cannot show you the big one. I cannot make you go inside the house, but I can make you this small scale thing. So I'm going to divide it in 5 pieces so that we can understand a little bit more how these planets or how these worlds are divided and separated. So he calls the first one, the level that's kindergarten. Let's come from kindergarten to 5th grade. So he says, okay, the kindergarten worlds, that means these worlds will receive spirits that were just created. We were just born for the very first time. We will call these types of planets primitive planets, where we have, only what we worry about is food, sleep, have sex to procreate, go back to sleep, go back to eat, go back to have sex to procreate, go back to sleep, go back to, and sometimes when I think of this, I think that we're still in the same planet, because apparently I see a lot of people that still do the same thing. That's the only reason for their lives. It's eat, sleep, and have sex. Have sex, not even to procreate, to have fun, and that's it. So it's just purely a material life. There is nothing to worry about. I mean, they don't care about kids, they don't care about anything. It's like the life of animals. It's like nature. It's just starting, so we are learning how to deal with life. This is the very first level, primitive worlds. Then we start to get more and more conscious about ourselves. Then we reach the second level. So kindergarten, they start playing, and they don't know why they are playing, but there are teachers. And teachers are giving them problems to solve, but they don't know that they are problems because they're having fun. But once they learn that, then they grow, and then they say, oh, I can use that problem that my teacher gave me, and I solved, to solve problems in my real life. So now I can use what I learned to progress. Now I'm on the second level that Kardec calls worlds of tests and atonements, which is the world that we are living in right now. It's a world where we are still connected to, in a very tactile way, in a very sensory way, to this primitive world. But we all already have this moral capability of deciding, of really thinking about things and say, am I going to do this, or I'm not going to do this? I still don't have that moral capability of really doing big things, but we are working on it. And we are suffering from mistakes that we made in the past so that we can learn. Remember what I said. This is this small scale apartment that Kardec is showing to us. It's not the big apartment. It's just a small so that we can see. Why am I saying this? Because from kindergarten to 1st grade, it's not one day. It's a whole year. So there, from the first day of kindergarten to the last day of kindergarten, there were lots of improvements, but we don't see an improvement from one day to the next. But when we see the first day and compare to the last day, we will see the difference. So what Kardec is saying is, okay, I'm telling you that there are these primitive worlds. But I'm not saying that this primitive world is equal and all the same for all there is. Because every day there are different gradations. You can go up a little bit. So step by step, just like, one day I will be 15, like Adriana dreams, right? One day she will be 15. The next life, right? Just like myself. Seu Antônio também, right? One day he will be 15 again, right, Seu Antônio? All of us. But to be 15, if I'm 13, it's not like, oh, I can't wait the day that I'll be 15. And then one day at a time comes, one day at a time. All of a sudden you're 15 and what is the big change? Nothing, because you didn't change from 13 to 15 like in a jump. No, you went one day after the other, like for 2 years to become 15. The same way with these worlds, with this category, these categories that Kardec says. So he is not saying that, okay, so you're primitive and then you're there and then all of a sudden you're this and then all of a sudden you're this. No, it's something that go up little by little. So he is just saying, okay, these are big categories. In between those categories and inside those categories, there are different levels. And every person is different in that category. Otherwise, we could not have a Chico Xavier, for example. We could have never had a Jesus here because he is so far away that he would never be able to come to this world with the level that we were at that time. So it's not it's something that's closed and then nothing touches it. No, what Kardec is saying is, hey, look, I'm a teacher. Kardec was a teacher. So I'm just making these labels here so that you can understand. But these are steps that you go climbing on the ladder very slowly. First one, primitive world. Second one, worlds of tests and atonements, where there is more evil, quote unquote here, where we still don't know what we're doing, but we're doing anyways. And hopefully learning from our mistakes. So some people talk too much, for example.
Why are you looking at me?
No, I'm thinking of myself. I'm the only one talking here, right? So some people talk too much. They should not be talking a lot, right? They should keep their mouths shut, right? But they don't, right? And they keep talking and talking and talking, right? Make a lot of mistakes, just like I'm doing right now. Right, Chris?
No.
But when we learn from what we made wrong, we go ahead, and then we improve. And that's how we will improve. So this world of tones, of tests and atonements, it is for us to test things, test ourselves. What is right? What is wrong? How can I feel it? What are the consequences of what I am doing? And then, once I really learn, and I stop doing mistakes because there's a difference in, okay, I'm going to test this, but I don't know if it's wrong or not. I'm testing it. Once I learn that that is wrong, if I do it again, there's something wrong there, right? Because I learned that it is wrong. It's not good. But if I'm testing something that I don't know it's wrong, and then it's wrong, and then next time I'm not going to do this. So I learned that I should not be doing this. Then, when we do this most of the time, then we are really getting really better. Then the teacher looks at us and say, hey, now you're ready to go to the next level. Do you want to go to the next level? That's another question they ask. Because I may have a friend that's staying behind. And if it's, to me, the choice is given, some people may choose to stay behind, not because of themselves, but because of the others, to stay behind and help. And that's why we have Chico Xavier. That's why we have Jesus coming back, because they care so much about ourselves that they decide that they will come to help. And one day maybe will be our chance to do the same, to stay behind, because I have a daughter, I have a son, I have a husband. I think to stay behind because of a daughter, stay behind because of a son is good. But let's face it, to stay behind because of a husband,
I don't think so.
to stay behind because of a wife, if we are able to do that, we will certainly be really good. Let's try. It's a task, but it can be done. So then the third one is regenerating worlds, where is, okay, now I can see that we're still suffering, but now I am really aware that I should not be doing this, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not perfect yet. I still make mistakes, but I am still and already doing the more good things than bad things. So I'm going. So it is like in a school, I'm learning to write, and then I'm making less and less mistakes when I'm writing, because I'm reading, because I'm really putting my effort, because because I listen to the teacher, I hear what he has to say, and say, look, you can do better by doing this. And then I follow the instructions, and I say, oh, you're right. So, but let me test this. And you test, but you test because you're curious, not because you want to make a mistake. And then if it's okay, it's okay. If it's not, okay, yeah, okay, so I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I go ahead. And don't do that anymore. That's the regenerating worlds. Then we have the two last worlds, which we really sincerely don't know nothing about, or almost nothing. Blessed worlds, in this translation, and celestial or divine worlds. It's where there's no evil, there's nothing wrong. On these worlds, there's not even usually matter, physical matter. Our bodies will not be physical anymore. We'll be almost as spirits without this body. Because this body is, of course, it is good for us, but it's part of a level that we still have to die, right? We still have to suffer because of our body, because of the diseases that we get, because it's the level that we are in yet, still. Once we get to those very high-level worlds, we will not have the need to suffer because of our bodies anymore. It will be all in our minds, in our hearts. We won't have the need for this anymore. It's far away from us, but it's a good dream for us to have. Like the saying, shoot for the moon. Shoot for the moon. So one day you'll be able to get there. So let's keep doing it. Let's keep striving to do and to follow Jesus' advices. Do unto others what you want done unto you. And once we keep doing it, once we keep preparing ourselves, improving ourselves, we are helping to improve our world. If we are a better student, we make our class to be better. If we are a better doctor, I make the hospital that I work on a better hospital. If I'm a better husband, a better wife, a better son, a better daughter, I make everywhere that I go a better place. So if we all do the same, we will make this world a better place. And then we will transition from the world of tests and atonements into this regenerating world that we are walking towards it. So let's keep praying and let's keep asking God to help us on this matter. And one day we will be able to see this earth, this planet, this small blue dot in the whole universe, a better place than we have right now. Chapter 3, items 3 to 5 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. There is much more in here. If you want to know more, read these items. They are very small items, but they have a lot of information there. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for Chris.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So we believe that, although you said that our planet could be just the first step on the scale
Yeah.
of the evolution.
Yeah, it's in the
So
second
it could be the
step.
first step because that spirit that we're talking about, the evolution one, it could be Pluto.
Yeah.
We
It
can't
could.
see anything. There is nobody there,
It
but
could.
we don't see it. So
It
we
could.
might be in that on Pluto, right?
It could be the sun, it could be anywhere, we really don't know. And that's the objective, is one day make this planet.
This could be the first one, first step.
Yeah.
Just learning over here.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I'm glad I'm with you because you are all bringing me up. So thank you for being here, for helping me to grow.
Podemos recadinho agora?
Yeah, I can hear. So we have our this weekend on Saturday we have our celebration, Christmas celebration, because the weekend after this is Christmas Eve on the 24th on a Saturday, and we all have our meetings with our families and so on. So we are making it a week earlier, so it will be this weekend, this Saturday at 7 here at Continuum. And we're gonna have a celebration with the kids, and we have this dinner, and the dinner is when people come, and what we gather from buying the dinner, from people buying the dinner, all the money that we gather, we donate to, I think this year will be two or three, yeah. Two, right? Two non-government ONGs in Brazil. One is a Spiritist center that helps homeless people in Natal, and the other is a group of people that are building this house for people that are addicts in alcohol or in drugs. It's in a small town in Minas Gerais called Espera Feliz. So all the money that we gather on this next Saturday, we will split into these and donate to these two groups in Brazil. Plus, with what the group itself usually takes something and adds to what was gathered and then sends to them, and it helps in their buildings and with their situations. They're helping families and so on. So this is our meeting this next Saturday at 7 p.m. We will be here. This Friday, the group in Marlborough, the Spiritist group in Marlborough, are going to have their dinner party, their Christmas dinner. It's Friday at 7 as well. And this is a special one, not only because it's a Christmas dinner, but because they move from where they are right now. A company built or bought the building that they are renting, and they have to move somewhere else. So the money that they're gathering these past few weeks or past few months they're trying to make a huge sum so that they can have the first 3 months of rent, because they are bigger than us, so they need more space. So they need a bigger place, which is a bigger rent, and if it's a bigger rent, then because it's commercial, you usually have to give 3 months ahead. So you can imagine how much you have to do this. So they always invite everybody, but if we can come, if we want to come, Adriana knows where it is, I know where it is, we can give the address and so on. And one last bit of news that I learned this past week, is that the group of Somerville, they already made all their festivities, I think, because they're getting ready also to move. the group in Somerville will move to Malden. They found this church, and they're gonna rent this church there. I don't know the address yet. In January 1st, they're out where they were for more than 20 years.
Wow, 20 years, yeah.
So, because also the owners of the building sold the building and needed to sell the building, they needed to move, so they are moving to a different location. So January comes, we're gonna have probably two groups out of their original places. And that's how it is, and if we, I think these are news that we are involved, they're all our friends, so we should all know. But I think these are the announcements that I had to make. So if you want to come for this Saturday, we will all be here. What? Oh, okay. Yeah, and so it's been such a long time that I don't talk about it that I forgot. Thank you, Chris. So when we, one of the things that we promote or that we talk about in Spiritism is that coming to the Spiritist Center is one step. Doing something outside of our houses is another step of becoming a real Christian. And one tool that we can use that help us also stay on track is to once a month, once a week, at one specific time, one day, let's say Thursday nights from 8 to 8:30. Sit every Thursday night from 8 to 8:30. Get a message from the Gospel According to Spiritism from one of the books. Sit and read it one by one every week, and read and make a comment, not to the other, but to ourselves. Thinking about it, so if we want to have the same type of environment that we have in the Spiritist Center in our house, this is one good way of doing it. Because when we are doing it, we are inviting the split spirits to be at our places. We're inviting our mentors. We're inviting Jesus and his companions to be with us. He said, if there is 1, 2, or more people gathered in my name, I will be there. And we are never alone. We always have our guardian angel. So even if I'm alone, I'm not alone. So he will send somebody. There will always be somebody with us. And what we're doing is we are opening the doors to these good spirits. And hopefully, and certainly this helps us and helps our family and helps everybody that's around us to feel that vibration. You know, when I was growing up, I had my grandmother and some of my aunts, they are Catholics. So they have the Bible open in their houses. So one of them or two of them have their Bibles, and then some days they would stop there and read passages from the Bible. What are they doing? They're inviting good spirits to come to their houses. They are, thinking about those passages, thinking about Jesus, thinking about forgiveness. And this helps us carry through the days, carry through the problems, and enlighten ourselves, strengthen ourselves. So it's a good habit to have. We have habits of watching games, watching like Chris. She watches 5 soap operas every day. She stays there.
Me?
Just kidding.
I wish.
So we sit and watch things and do things, and it's just half an hour once a week for us to do it. So it's a good thing for us to do. The God at home or gospel at home. And with this, we come to the end of this first part, and Adriana and Chris will go to the passes. Right after they finish, I will come back here, do our final prayer, and then we'll finish our meeting.
eu não vejo qualquer regra.